Imagine waking up in the year 2030. You don't own your car, your house, or even your clothes. Every aspect of your existence is rented from a mega corporation, and your every movement is tracked by a global system. This specific vision of the future was condensed into a single viral sentence that dominated social media feeds for years. You'll own nothing, and you'll be happy. During the 2020 lockdowns, this phrase became the centerpiece of a global narrative. What began as a health crisis quickly transformed, in the eyes of millions, into a suspicion that the pandemic was being used to justify a coordinated, permanent dismantling of private property. Critics pointed to a single source, the World Economic Forum. Known for hosting the global elite in Davos, Switzerland, the organization had officially launched an initiative it called the Great Reset. It's a leap from a boring, bureaucratic economic forum to a global supervillain origin story. But this shift didn't happen by accident. It was the result of a specific interaction between institutional messaging and the way information moves online. This narrative first took root in a massive trust vacuum. As the pandemic upended daily life and institutions struggled to provide clear, consistent answers, public faith in traditional authorities reached a breaking point. When people lose faith in official channels, they naturally look for patterns elsewhere, crowdsourcing explanations across digital platforms to make sense of a chaotic world. That search for patterns eventually found a physical source, a book titled COVID-19, The Great Reset, published in 2020 by World Economic Forum founder Klaus Schwab. Schwab's actual proposal is built on three specific pillars. First, he advocates for a stakeholder economy, a shift where corporations are tasked with solving societal problems rather than just maximizing profits for shareholders. The second pillar calls for using government stimulus funds to drive a green economic recovery, pressuring industries to meet strict environmental and social metrics. Finally, the plan focuses on the fourth industrial revolution, the rapid integration of artificial intelligence, robotics, and biological technologies into the global economy. In its original form, Schwab's plan is a dense academic economic forecast. It is dry, technical, and largely lacks the cinematic drama required to capture global attention on its own. To become a viral threat, these academic ideas had to undergo decontextualization. The internet rewards information that is stripped of nuance and reassembled to trigger a state of high alert. The Own Nothing quote, for example, had nothing to do with a global mandate. It came from a 2016 essay by a Danish politician predicting a future where people rent appliances and cars on demand rather than buying them. Social media algorithms amplified only the most extreme interpretation of that essay. A prediction about the sharing economy was successfully reframed as a plan for the total confiscation of private property. This suspicion was reinforced when world leaders began using synchronized language. When Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spoke about an opportunity for a reset, the internet saw it as a slip of the mask. As the phrase "Build Back Better" appeared in Joe Biden's infrastructure plans, it provided the visual confirmation skeptics were looking for. When the same slogan appeared on Boris Johnson's podium in the UK, the repetition suggested a unified global script, cementing the idea of a secret world order in the minds of millions. The algorithm had essentially crowdsourced a sci-fi thriller, replacing a series of dry economic recovery policies with a highly clickable existential threat. If the internet conspiracy is a fiction, is the World Economic Forum simply a group of benevolent billionaires trying to save the planet? There is a documented reason for concern, but it isn't the one trending on social media. Over 400 global human rights organizations recently signed a letter protesting a strategic partnership between the United Nations and the WEF. The real-world concern is a shift toward multi-stakeholderism, a governance model giving mega-corporations a direct seat alongside governments, bypassing the voters. Under this framework, profit-driven entities gain unprecedented power over global health, environmental policy, and digital infrastructure without ever being elected. The World Economic Forum doesn't need to abolish your private property. They are focused on a much more practical goal: restructuring global governance so that corporations control the systems you are forced to use every day. This is the decoy effect. Viral conspiracy theories are the perfect smokescreen because it is far easier to fight a cartoonish supervillain than it is to untangle the boring, complex reality of corporate policy. While the world is distracted by digital myths and secret plots, a very real, very quiet corporate takeover is happening in plain sight. In a functioning democracy, the equation is simple. You cast your vote, your elected representatives write the laws, and those laws govern society. But right now, the most significant changes to how the world operates are bypassing your elected officials completely. They are happening in broad daylight. This governance model, called multi-stakeholderism, intercepts the traditional loop between you and your government with a higher-level authority. Notice who makes up this layer. Massive, unelected multinational corporations, now handed a direct seat at the global policy table. Instead of policies originating from the voting booth, they are drafted behind closed doors by the exact same billionaires and CEOs who run these companies. This theoretical framework transitioned into an official international policy in the year 2019. That year, the United Nations signed a formal strategic partnership framework with the World Economic Forum, led by Klaus Schwab. This agreement grants corporate executives a permanent role within the UN's decision-making process, allowing them to shape global health and environmental policy alongside public officials. The very same financial and tech giants responsible for market crashes and data monopolies are now positioned as the architects of global recovery, while ordinary citizens bear the cost of their mistakes. By moving global policymaking into private boardrooms, the framework effectively replaces the authority of national governments with the influence of private monopolies. Writing global policy is only the first step. To actually enforce those new rules globally, you need massive infrastructure. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, governments worldwide rapidly rolled out massive digital surveillance networks. Practically overnight, billions of people agreed to carry to-trill location trackers and scan entry checkpoints simply to buy groceries or board a flight. What was introduced as a temporary public health measure effectively built and field-tested the permanent architecture for a fully tracked society. Because if you are going to manage an entire global population based on corporate interests, you cannot rely on voluntary participation. You need absolute digital compliance. This surveillance infrastructure finds its way into your wallet through central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. This visual illustrates the difference between standard digital money and a CBDC. While standard digital money is static, central bank digital currencies are programmable. They are built on logic chains that dictate exactly how and when your money is used. If you exceed a monthly carbon allowance determined by those new global environmental policies, your digital wallet could instantly deny a purchase at the gas pump or the grocery store. Or, if you attend a protest that the state deems illegal, your entire life savings can be frozen with a single keystroke. When you merge corporate state power with money that can turn itself off, you create the foundation for a techno-totalitarian system. Compliance with this system won't come through force. It will be marketed as the ultimate convenience. It will be sold as a necessary measure for your physical security and a vital step toward a green economic recovery. People will trade away their remaining autonomy just to access the basic requirements of modern society. We will lock the cage from the inside. By the time the public realizes that unelected corporate boards have permanently taken control, the question will be, who holds the kill switch to your life?
In the spring of 2020, our physical world came to a sudden halt, leaving a global population isolated and vulnerable. As entire cities were forced into silence, the digital landscape filled the void with a frantic, rising tide of anxiety. While families were cut off from their communities and livelihoods, happy with the trade. In that atmosphere of powerlessness, digital nodes of misinformation began to form a terrifying picture, a world where every human movement, heartbeat, and transaction is tracked by an inescapable, automated grid. It is easy to dismiss these theories as madness, but they were born from the very real sensation of the walls closing in, not just on our streets, but on our basic ability to make choices for ourselves and our families. This explosion of viral panic serves as a desperate, glaring symptom of a society that realizes its grip on its own future has been severed. The foundation for this panic was laid long ago. Decades of institutional failure have left a massive global vacuum where public faith in elected governments and mainstream media used to be. While everyday people watch their local economies crumble and their small businesses board up, The net worth of the ultra-wealthy hit record highs, proving that the system was no longer designed for the people it claimed to serve. This produced a deep-seated resentment toward the idea of a billionaire class, disconnected from the struggles of the working world, convening in private to dictate global policy. As the authority of democratic institutions continues to fade, the real danger is the quiet, efficient transfer of that power into the hands of unaccountable private capital. The architects of the Great Reset don't operate in the shadows.
They promote their agenda in the blinding light of international summits, press releases, and meticulously branded white papers. This global transition is coordinated through highly publicized events at Davos, where corporate leaders and policymakers meet to openly discuss the restructuring of human society. At the center of this movement is Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, acting as the primary designers of this new global framework. Their stated goals are framed as a series of necessary global fixes: stabilizing supply chains, transitioning to a green economy, and creating a managed, sustainable future for everyone. These utopian ideals sound perfect on a brochure, but their implementation creates a system where the rules of the world are drafted by the very corporations that profit from them. We are living through a fundamental shift in how power is exercised. It is a struggle between democratic sovereignty, your right to decide your own path, and an unelected class that believes the world is a portfolio to be managed. When massive corporations dictate the terms of equity and sustainability, the resulting system is inevitably rigged to ensure their own continued dominance. This framework is built to bypass elected assemblies, funneling critical decision-making power away from local voters into a centralized hierarchy. Here, the citizens' ability to influence their country is effectively neutralized, replaced by policy outputs dictated by corporate boards. Ultimately, the Great Reset is a public campaign to replace the friction of democracy with the streamlined efficiency of corporate management. If this trajectory continues, the end of the decade will reveal a world entirely reorganized according to the specifications of the global elite. The goal is more subtle and more durable than any conspiracy theory suggests: absolute management. Every variable of human existence is being brought under a singular corporate umbrella. This process converts every aspect of our lives into a manageable asset. Health metrics, environmental footprints, and digital finances are systematically transformed into corporate data. Funneled upward, this system serves only those at the top of the hierarchy. We are asked to trade our individual agency for the promise of a managed, frictionless existence. But as we lose the right to own our assets, we lose the right to decide our own future. If we own nothing, then who owns us?